Not sure if I will thank our next guest just quite yet, because he had some fiery opinions that angered the Tolos. It is the host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Ross Tucker, I'm glad you're here. I'm just not sure if our audience is glad you're here.
All right, so you guys got to really break this down for me.
Yep.
I have to be honest. I was totally floored when you brought me in the week after the season ended for the Cowboys, and I found out that people in Dallas didn't like Kellen Moore. So let me just tell you, okay?
Sure.
The national perception, and perhaps you guys have realized this or had other people on, is that Kellen Moore did a fantastic job with the Dallas Cowboys offense this year, that they were very creative. He did an excellent job as a play caller, as a game planner. They were very often ahead of their opponents. I watched them score 40 points against the Philadelphia Eagles. They're a pretty good team, if you haven't heard. I mean, all the stats about how much they scored. I mean, even just what they did with Cooper Rush, but then all the stats about how much they scored after Dak came back. With all those interceptions, I had no idea that people in the Metroplex were down on Kellen. When did this start and why? Like, I need an explanation. Because, by the way, Chargers fans are thrilled. I don't know if you saw Daniel Jeremiah, who does the Chargers games. He had this whole breakdown of how good of an offensive coordinator Kellen Moore is. The only people that don't think Kellen Moore is a good coordinator is evidently a percentage of the Cowboys fan base. How big of a percentage is it?
In their front office. I think it's like 70%.
Didn't like Kellen Moore?
Let's also add this to the concept here. About 55% don't like Dak. All right, so let's take that into consideration.
Yeah.
And whenever you don't score enough points against San Francisco in a playoff game, maybe 2 years in a row, then why is there confusion even on the last play of a game? What are you doing here, Dak? So they already don't like Dak, but Dak has a big contract. It's not going anywhere. So you got to move on from somebody. You got to get something different because it's not scoring points in the playoffs, even though it's scoring all the points in the regular season.
They scored a lot of points against the Bucs in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Would you say it's a year and a half? Because Ross asked how long.
Okay.
I feel like maybe it's been a good year and a half that people last offseason wanted to give him the boot. So they've just been counting down to run him out of the building. I wanted to tell you that in the middle of it, but we just saw the fan text were like, I hate Kellen Moore. I think he gets judged unfairly. I'm not the biggest Kellen Moore fan, but I think he did a solid job to be sure.
I thought he did a really good job. I was stunned that is how people felt. Although I will say this, can I just say this for the listeners out there? If your solution is always new quarterback or new offensive coordinator, perhaps you're not really thinking as deeply about it as you should. The answer is not always get a new quarterback, fire the offensive coordinator. Okay, let's say you got rid of Dak. Who are you going to get to play quarterback? I mean,
we just magically replaced
Trevor
him. That's
Lawrence.
how it works.
Who are you going to get that's better than Dak? Yeah. And why don't you trade for Mahomes? Just trade for Mahomes.
Yeah.
And then secondly,
Deal.
if you're going to move on from Kellen Moore like you did, are you sure? Okay. People felt the way they did about Kellen Moore. How do they feel about the answer
Terrified.
to the question being Mike McCarthy?
Or Brian Schottenheimer.
Didn't Jerry already say McCarthy's calling the plays, though?
Yeah, and Jerry says things. And it's
I actually like Schottenheimer.
I think that McCarthy's going to call him. I think that, and you would have a lot more information on this. Does Brian walk in and say, I'm installing throughout the week, I might drop a few plays and slide them Mike's way, but on game day, it's all Mike McCarthy and his brain on how things function?
Well, so first of all, you guys know this, but Schottenheimer was there this past year because I talked to him on the field before the Thanksgiving Day game. Because his dad was my coach my rookie year in Washington, 2001. And Brian was our quarterback coach. So I actually think Brian has gotten a raw deal. He was the OC with the Jets when they got Sanchez
grounded
to the conference championship game back-to-back years. Okay? Then he goes to Seattle. Nobody meshed with Russell Wilson in Seattle. Even when they were putting up numbers, even though they were winning playoff games and scoring a lot of points, in Seattle, they just kept cycling through coordinators. It was never Russell's fault. It was always the coordinator. And then Jacksonville, that doesn't even count. the Urban Meyer year in
I'm with
Jacksonville.
ya.
It doesn't even count. So Schottenheimer's track record, I think, for some reason, there's a negative perception around him. Was he a coordinator somewhere else I'm forgetting?
Did you say the Rams?
Yeah, Rams.
Oh, I don't remember Rams.
The
What
Jeff
was
Jeff
that?
Fisher era of the Rams.
Oh, yeah, that was bad.
And they weren't, but
That was bad.
but
Sorry.
also when he came in there the year before, they were dead last in offense. So I'm like,
the Rams.
Yeah, to the Rams. They were dead last, and then they were like, I think 25, 21, and 21. So at least they were better. No great shakes. This is the best offense he's ever been a part of. But when you said, are you afraid? I thought the other end of that sentence was going to be Dak. And that's why Cowboys fans, I think, aim at Kellen Moore or whoever else, because it just feels like, the Joneses aren't going anywhere, but also it just feels like Dak isn't going anywhere. And so I think that's why people aim their anger at other places sometimes, because those other places might change. Maybe.
Did somebody said that there was a philosophical difference and that McCarthy wants to run the ball more, and Kellen Moore didn't agree with
Well,
that? Is that fair?
I see. If that's the case, I don't know, because they still ran the ball. They just weren't doing it effectively on first down. Like, they couldn't do it effectively at all at the last part of the season, and that's once Terrence Steele went down. The whole offense, their combo blocks with Zach Martin just disappeared. They couldn't quite get the same thing going. So that changed a lot of what their running game was. And then that's why they went with Pollard in the playoffs as their starter, essentially. But instead of Zeke, they were like, look, we got to have an explosive player.
Well, because Pollard's way better. Why is this even debatable?
There's
so many.
It took 2 seasons to figure that out.
There are people. I mean, Zeke's as good as Cut, right?
No.
Jerry's in love with him.
And that's the problem.
With the right deal.
You said people. You could have 99.9% of the people who are like, no, I know. But the 0.1 who makes the decision were like, I don't know. Zeke's still pretty good.
Sells jerseys.
Yeah.
But what is the deal when Jerry comes out and says that the Rams went all in and the Eagles are all in this year and the Cowboys like to take a longer view? Hey, Jerry, how about 30 years of no conference championship games?
And don't the Eagles have 2 first-round picks next year? Or
Yes.
this year? They didn't really go all in, or else they'd have no capital.
They drafted really well,
Yeah.
too. I
This
mean,
is
their offense
This is their 7th conference championship game since 2001.
Stop.
What are we at,
Stop,
Corey?
Ross.
Are we at 5?
It's got to be like 8 or
6,
9 at this
probably.
point.
So
Yeah.
is everybody in Dallas rooting against the Eagles because they hate them?
Yes.
Or is there some part where it's like makes you feel a little bit better about the fact that
Micah Parsons is rooting for the Eagles.
that's true?
Dude.
That's true.
That is wild. And you guys do that, right? They're friends with other players and
well,
everything.
no, not only that. Micah's from where I live.
Yeah.
Harrisburg, the state capital. Most people in Harrisburg are Eagles fans.
Uh-huh. And he got drafted by the Cowboys. It's just kind of the place he landed.
Yeah, but listen, I started 7 games for the Cowboys, and I was a huge Eagles fan growing up. Although I never rooted for them because I was kind of bitter that they never wanted me.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I could see that.
I was kind of bitter,
Yeah.
they never wanted me. Now, Micah, everybody wants Micah, so that's a little bit different. By the way, he's not going to win it tomorrow night or Thursday night, but I was not overly impressed by Bosa. The Eagles beat him up on Sunday. He's going to win the Defensive Player of the Year award. You look at, a lot of his sacks and stuff, I don't know. I still think a lot of coaches would rather take Micah than Nick Bosa.
I do
or
too.
Reddick had an unbelievable year. People don't even know how many Dallas Cowboys fans listening right now even know who Hassan Reddick is.
We knew whenever he was available, and he was out there. We're like, Jerry, go get that, and then all of a sudden it was like, stop talking about that guy.
We
I was
usually
like, isn't that the guy who was bad for Arizona? Like they drafted him and
Yes!
he didn't work out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which seems like somebody we would pick up. Hey, you were a draft pick with potential who didn't work out. Come on down.
You got to be a few years older than that.
That's true.
I will say,
Do you take any comfort in the fact that even if the Cowboys had beat the Niners, the Eagles still would have beaten them? Or do you think, who knows, maybe we could have won that game?
I mean,
With Tony
obviously, I
Pollard
can't-
breaking his
Yeah,
leg,
that's
that
true.
would have been really
Oh,
tough
yeah,
to go
good
to
point.
Philadelphia. And,
Yeah, they wouldn't have won that game.
your offensive weapons got whittled down to CD, and that was pretty much it against the Niners. We couldn't even get Schultz to play his typical
How
game.
many positions are the Cowboys better than the Eagles?
Who do you
Owner.
think's better? Who do you think's a better quarterback?
Well, I think this year Hurts was.
Okay.
I think Dak is a better thrower of the football, and I was really impressed with what Dak did this year. I don't think the Cowboys' weapons are that great. By the way, here's another thing. I talked about this on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast last week. How many of your listeners that think Gallup stinks and are mad at Gallup having a terrible year, how many of them know now that he had surgery on both his ankle and knee after the season and or care?
I don't think they care.
Yeah.
I think they're like, you should have been better off the ACL surgery you had last year. You should have, if you were on the field, you should have been. It's like the receiver, if it touches your, or if an outfielder touches your glove, you should have caught it. It touches your hands, you should have caught it. Michael Gallup, you should have been open because you were on the field.
No, that's the way it is, though. If you're inside the white lines, you're saying you're healthy enough to play.
Yeah.
And nobody cares what happens after that. But, dude, for a receiver to have knee and ankle surgeries after the year, no wonder he didn't do anything this year.
Now, speaking of white lines, did you know that is the theme song to the upcoming motion picture Cocaine Bear? Have you heard of this movie, and are you now intrigued if you had not?
I had heard of the movie Cocaine Bear.
Mm-hmm.
I am intrigued. I guess I'm finding it, is it like a documentary, like a real movie?
No. It is very loosely based on a true story.
Okay. And basically the whole movie is just the bear getting hopped up on cocaine and like going crazy?
Yeah, he's
And
carrying
murdering
around in his
people.
pocket, and he's just like.
That bear did not murder anybody, but in the movie, it definitely looks
It goes
like
on a
he's-
rampage.
Yeah, he's taking some folks
It's chasing
out.
people up trees and everything.
See, I'm not really into I don't watch movies like that. I don't need stress like that.
That does sound stressful.
I watch romantic comedies.
Okay.
I like romantic comedies. I like to laugh like 5 times, and I like at the end of the movie, the girl and the guy get together, and I'm happy.
Serendipity was
I don't
my
need
favorite one.
even like my wife and I, we're way behind. So I'm still trying to finish Ozark with my wife.
Gotcha.
Oh, wow.
That's stressful.
And I can't even sleep right after an episode.
It's intense.
I'm like stressed out. I'm like worried about what's going to happen. I don't need that in my life, dude.
What's your favorite romantic comedy then?
Ooh.
I could have asked who's going to win the Super Bowl, but I like
No, this is better. This
yeah.
is better. Ooh, there's a lot of good ones.
One time, my future wife walked in, and me and all my roommates were watching Serendipity, and we had our hands on our faces, and we were like, "Oh my God!" And Kate Beckinsale and John Cusack. This is amazing.
I like The Notebook a lot.
Okay.
I think that's a good one. You know how they die together in bed at the end? Oh, sorry, everybody.
Oh my God!
That movie's like 20 years old. If you didn't know that, you were never going to watch it. All right. We appreciate it very much, courtesy of DraftKings, and obviously listen to the Ross Tucker podcast. We appreciate it very much, good
Absolutely.
sir.
Great to see you guys in person.
Yes,
This is
sir.
twice in 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, man.
You're welcome.